I am a native to South Central Los Angeles. The funny thing is my dad was an entrepreneur. 2 years and 9 months later, when I left, they were at 70 people, and I had hired a good amount of those folks. How do you create win-win situations for economic mobility? Can we do it through technology? One of the things I've leaned into a lot as being a founder is really listening to my gut. I approached her and was like, you want to do this thing with me? You can build a really cool product, you can make a lot of money, and you can also treat your workers equitably. Oh, I want to find the best people for these positions. And it just so happens to be Black women. And that has been the most life-giving experience I've literally ever had.
What's up, Unfound Nation? Dan Kihanya here, your host for Founders Unfound. Thanks so much for listening in. That was Kameale Terry, co-founder and CEO of ChargerHelp, a company that enables on-demand repair of electric vehicle charging stations. Our episode is sponsored by Black VC, a focused community built for and by Black investors. Check out the link in the show notes for more about their exceptional programs and events. If you ever thought about getting into venture, you definitely want to connect up with them at blackvc.com. That's BLCKVC.com. Well, it's July 2020, and back in March, we thought we'd have the coronavirus wrestled and contained by now, and we would be on our way up the long road to societal and economic recovery. Well, it appears we just aren't there yet. Here in the U.S., more than ever, we need to embrace the challenge that we are all in this together, as a country. Please, wear a mask when you can. Not because someone told you to, or because it was mandated, but simply as a gesture of support, empathy, and consideration for our neighbors and fellow citizens. As always, you can find Founders Unfound anywhere you regularly listen to podcasts. And you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Founders Unfound. Feel free to drop us a review on Apple or Podchaser.com. And please, follow, like, and share to help us grow. Now, on with the episode. Stay safe and hope you enjoy. Hello, and welcome to Founders Unfound, spotlighting the best startups you don't know yet. We bring you stories of exceptional founders from underrepresented backgrounds. This is episode number 15 in our series on founders of African descent. I'm your host, Dan Kihanya. Let's get on it. Today we have Kameale Terry, a co-founder and CEO of ChargerHelp, a company that enables on-demand repair of electric vehicle charging stations. Welcome to the show, Kameale, and thanks for making the time.
Thanks for having me.
Great. So let's first start off. This is just an incredibly powerful, crazy time. How are you doing? How's your family? Obviously in the context of COVID and then what's been going on in the last 3 weeks, how are you?
I was actually having this conversation with a friend the other day. I feel almost numb to it because, it's a lot happening and then things are going really well with the business. And so it's weird. Some days you're super numb. Some days you're sad, some days you're excited. It's definitely a roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I know for me, it's even in the same day, you can be up, you can be down. Right. And
yeah.
And if you're trying to do a startup on top of that, it must be just all the more compounded and intense.
No, it really is. Yeah.
You're in LA, is that right?
Yeah, specifically South Central Los Angeles. It's important.
Yeah. South Central representing.
You have to.
Yeah. So first of all, let's start off. Why don't you help the audience understand what exactly is ChargerHelp? How does it work? And what is it that the company does?
Sure. So I guess over the last 5 years, there's been probably almost 500,000 charging stations installed throughout the U.S. And over the next 5 years, they're looking at installing about 2 million more. But one of the things that has come about is the folks that install the charging stations and manage the software in the charging stations, they're called network providers. And one of the issues that have come is having someone go on site to troubleshoot a software issue. In the past, we would send electrical contractors out on site, but when they would get there, it wasn't an electrical issue. It had more to do with firmware, communication, modem. And so they couldn't fix it, and they were expensive. And so what ChargerHelp does is that we partner with network providers. So when a station is experiencing an issue, we receive a dispatch immediately. And then we're training folks from the local community on how to troubleshoot software issues for smart devices. And in this case, electric vehicle charging stations. And then from there, we're able to get folks paid pretty equitably and then also save money to network providers. And I think the biggest point to all of this is when we were using electrical contractors as an industry, it could take up to like 30 days to have a station get fixed. Whereas with our technology that we're building out, we're able to get stations fixed within like the hour, which we're really excited about.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a difference. Transformative. So we'll dig into that in a little bit, but let's hear a little bit more about you. Where are you from? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I'm from South Central LA. I actually moved to Philly when I was like 22, 23. So I feel like I grew up in Philly. Like a lot of like my adult developmental years was in Philadelphia. I am a native to South Central Los Angeles.
Nice, nice. And so growing up, did you have a sense of what entrepreneurship was? I know for me, I had a dad who was, spent 40 years at the same company, but he was one of these frustrated entrepreneurs who had an idea every other day and never really acted on them. But I'm always curious to ask entrepreneurs, did you have that in your life? Anybody in your family or any experiences around what that meant?
Yeah, the funny thing is my dad was an entrepreneur.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, both of my parents are from Belize, and my dad started his company when he was 22. He started a computer networking company. He liked to take things apart, so he started up as a mechanic, but he said he didn't like to get dirty. So then he learned computers.
I like the way he thinks.
But the funny thing about all of that is like I always said I never wanted to be an entrepreneur because like as like a lot of entrepreneurs probably know, like when times are like well, they're great, but when they're bad, like they're horrible. So I just remember like, struggling a lot because my dad was like trying to run this company. And I always said, I'm just going to work for a big Fortune 500 company and be able to like get a 401k and like have something safe. And here I am.
Yeah, that happens a lot. You got to see sort of the underbelly of entrepreneurship, really, which is it's risky, there's uncertainty, there's ups and downs. Like you said, when the times are good, they're usually pretty good, but when they're bad, they can be stressful and angst ridden. So I guess at least you kind of entered it eyes wide open somewhat. And so you grew up thinking that you're going to take the corporate route. Did that influence, or when you were thinking about going to college, were you thinking along those lines, or?
Yeah, and so much so that when I came out of college, I just started off at a nonprofit. So I was in Camden, New Jersey. And then I transitioned into banking. And so when I started off in banking, I started like as a part-time teller. And then I think within 4 years, I was running a group of business bankers. So climbing the ladder, like checking off boxes and, just attacking goals was always something I was really good at. So that's why I felt like corporate was really good for me. But there were I think that it does stifle creativity and like all of these other things that I'm now being able to like get being an entrepreneur. But in the beginning, I was like, oh, this is easy. Like I can hit goals. Tell me what to do.
That's funny. And how did you view the cultural shift from going from West Coast to East Coast? Because I kind of did the opposite. I started on the East Coast and ended up on the West Coast. How was that transition?
I loved it. I think one of the greatest things about Philadelphia is that there are like so many Black people. And like, even though I grew up in like South Central, my parents sent me to the school in the Valley for high school. And so I was always around like a lot of different races, but never around a lot of Black folks. And I remember getting to Philly and traveling to DC, and my cousin, he works like on top of, everybody works at the hill or on top of the hill. And, everybody's like a Greek. And it was wild to see Black wealth concentrated in such a way and just how folks worked with one another. So like the East Coast will forever have my heart. And I'm hoping, as like Leimert Park and other areas here in LA continue to grow, we can have something like that. But during that time period, it was amazing to see that.
Yeah, that's interesting. How did you feel about that? Was it one of those things where you're like, oh, I'm not familiar with this, so it's hard to I can appreciate it, but it's hard to get into it? Or you were like, I'm in 100%. I want to be a part of this. How did that sort of strike you when you first sort of came across that realization?
I think I definitely was like, I'm in. There were definitely like some circles where folks who came from there's Black people who come from a lot of money and they have a different perspective. Or if you tell somebody you're from South Central, even if they're Black, sometimes they're like, say crazy stuff, So there were groups that I was like, oh, okay, probably not. But then like generally I was like, oh, this is really cool. I want to be a part of this thing. And how can I replicate this like experience?
Nice. All right. So you went to college, and what was your major in college? What were you focused on?
Organizational leadership.
Nice. And so you go the nonprofit route initially, and then you end up in this bank screaming up the ladder. Was there a moment or a set of epiphanies, I guess would be the word, where you started to say, climbing the ladder is not going to be enough for me? Where you started to think about maybe I want to do something more entrepreneurial or creative? Or was it more, I want to do this other thing? And it seems like the way to do that other thing is through creative entrepreneurship.
I think there were a series of moments. So one of my passions has always been like economic mobility and how do you create win-win situations. And mainly because I watched my parents like work a lot, even my dad who had his own company and my mom was a special education assistant. So I saw them come to America for this American dream, but it didn't matter how hard they worked or how many hours, they put in. Like there were still barriers, right? And that always was confusing to me. And so one of the first things I did was went the nonprofit route to say, okay, well, how do I enact change through working at a nonprofit? I found out that there's also a lot of barriers working at a nonprofit, especially when you have to like ask people for money all the time and they're really controlling how you choose to address an issue. So I was like, well, I guess I'll go where the money is at. So I was like, I'll go be a banker.
Right.
So then I, transitioned to being a banker. But then even there, I was a part of the Warden Small Business Development Center. So we were working with small businesses in the community. I sat on the board of a community development financial institution. So I was still trying to find ways to do this economic mobility thing to like help people, but it still wasn't enough. And then on top of that, my mom got re-diagnosed with cancer. My mom's had cancer my entire life, really because of like poor healthcare system and like everything that comes with living in poverty. So she got re-diagnosed. And so I had to come back to LA. And two things happened at that point. The first thing was that I had climbed so far up and I was really young. So I'm like, I think I was like 25 or so, managing 14 people that are almost 3 times my age. And I think I was burnt out. And so when I came back to LA, I was just like, I don't want to do much of anything. I just want to help my mom and just figure out something. So figure out something that has to do with my passion. So I guess like all of that led down to like, I went the nonprofit route, I went this banking route, but I'm still not figuring out how can I like drive impact. And I took a break and started just working random jobs. And I ended up at a clean tech company. And that was my last company I was at before I started my own company.
Wow. That's pretty profound. And I think there's a story there around sort of this forcing action that happens with your mom and you having to go and break away. And it must be interesting. I remember vaguely, since I'm an old man now, but what it was like to have people who are older than you kind of reporting to you and the dynamic of, accepting their wisdom, but also being the boss. And
right.
So that is hard. I can see how that would be something where it can, lead to, like you said, to burnout. When you said you did some odd jobs, what were the odd jobs?
So my background is in organizational leadership. I'm obsessed with data and process. It's really funny. I enjoy writing RFPs and studying stuff, like all the things that people usually hate doing, I enjoy doing. So I started picking up projects around helping organizations see if they're actually impactful. So the first one we did was actually with the LAPD, their community safety, their CSP program. So we were looking at, based off of all of their goals that they had for this program of doing community policing, were they actually hitting, the mark? Because they were actually going out for funding. So they had to prove all of this stuff. And so I took a look at the report that they made and made some suggestions on how they should move forward. So I did that. And that was a project I was working on. And then my other project, I was working with Dress for Success and the workforce development centers in LA and San Bernardino County to see if their workforce development programs were actually impactful. And there again, just like found just people kind of like missing the mark or just not doing exactly what they were saying they were doing, but they were able to fix numbers to make it seem like they were doing it. But when we started asking better questions, we saw like, oh yeah, like this isn't impactful. So those are kind of like the two things I worked on.
Yeah, those sound really interesting. And I imagine for a conversation for another time is your perspective on
Yeah, absolutely.
community policing, given what we have going on now. But so you end up with, is it called EV Connect?
Yeah.
So tell us how that came about.
So I finished those projects and I was like, oh, like I need healthcare and like a job. So I went on AngelList.
Small details.
I was like, oh, I should probably do something. I'm just like hanging out with my mom all the time, taking her doctor's appointments. Like she's also getting tired of me being at home. So I was like, I should do something outside the house. So so I went to angellist.co and I literally was looking for like customer support jobs. I was like, I don't want to manage people. I don't want to have to like tell people what to do. I just want to like be in like a little closet and just type like whatever people need me to type. And so I ended up at EV Connect. There probably was like 10, no more than 15 people at that time. I remember my mom showing up in the office and not believing it was a real company because there was like no one there. She's like,
oh,
what?
really, Mom? Really, Mom? No, really?
She's like, what? And my parents, even though my dad owned his own company, like this whole startup tech stuff is just, they're always like, explain that again. So my mom, she didn't believe it. But what ended up happening at EV Connect, we grew like so quickly. We landed some pretty big projects. You know, I was able to stand up our customer support department, then the customer experience, and then expand our call center, stand up the network operations center. And then my last role was director of programs. So every major deployment in the US and internationally was sourced and implemented by my team. Also did our ERP system. And this was like, I always laughed at my founder at the time, just being like, I just came here to like answer tickets. Like 2 years and 9 months later, when I left, they were at 70 people. And I had hired a good amount of those folks on the customer experience support side and helped do some like really cool things there and just learned a lot from that team. And yeah, they'll always have like a special place in my heart for taking a chance on me. Because I'd never done any of those things before. And the founder was like, well, show me your plan. And I would. And he's like, okay, I guess you can do that. And then I did it. And I did it again. And he was like, okay. So that was a pretty amazing experience.
Yeah, that speaks to the experience that a lot of people can have at a startup, which is there isn't this direct path, and it's sort of like if you double and triple down and invest yourself into it, then that's a signal to the people who are in charge, which we'll talk about now that you're in that seat, who realize, today we're fine. And then tomorrow we needed this thing 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And
right.
it's like, I need somebody to do that. Well, Kameale, what do you think about this? And, if the answer is halfway decent, it's like, why don't you go look into that? And so that is, that's one of the, I think, beauties of working in a startup is that you get this opportunity to kind of dig in and get more and more exposure in a very accelerated way. Like you said, it was just a couple of years. And I know the company, I remember researching it. It's raised a bunch of money and it's a pretty profound leader in the industry and so forth. So you were there kind of to see that.
Yeah.
So was there anything that you took away? We're going to talk about on the other side of the break, your startup. Were there things that you took away from that experience that you cataloged in the back of your mind? Like, if I ever do this myself, this is the way I think I'm going to do it, or this is the way I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing I took away is like really like listening and paying attention. And then mainly like from our founder, Jordan at EV Connect, like he made sure that every day he left office to have lunch. And anybody in that entire company, if they ever wanted to go have lunch with him, like he would. And he took a lot of just like listening to people, and he was very genuine. And I think that's one thing that I'm like really trying to have at my company is just be like, no matter how large we get, somebody from the customer support side wants to go have lunch with me. I can like not only have lunch with them, but like want to have lunch with them and like listen to them. And even until when we left like 70 people, I remember there was one of the customer support ladies, and she was like, yeah, Jordan, we went out to lunch. And I was like, yeah, I told you. And people were always taken aback by it. But I think having a leader like that is so important, especially with times like now. And so, yeah, that's something that I want to continue to like implement as we continue to grow.
That's a great point. Listening is a underrated, underappreciated, underused, and the good leaders really do a lot of listening for sure.
Yeah.
So we will take a short break to hear from our sponsor and be right back with Kameale Terry of ChargerHelp.
Hi, this is Jean-Claude from Black VC. We're a community created to connect, engage, empower, and advance Black venture investors. And the best part is, we're built for and by Black venture investors. In these unprecedented times, our mission has become clearer than ever. Black founders and investors are underrepresented and undercapitalized in the startup ecosystem. If you're an investor, an entrepreneur, or aspiring to be either one, Black VC is working hard to help you find the community and the resources that you need to further your journey. To learn more about the events and the programs that we run, follow us on Twitter at BlackVC, that's BLCKVC, or visit us on our website at blackvc.com, that's BLCKVC.com. Yep, you heard that correctly, no A. At Black VC, we believe that we are the change that we seek, and together, we're stronger. We hope that you'll join us.
So we're back with Kameale Terry from ChargerHelp. So Kameale, now maybe take us through, where did ChargerHelp come from? You're at this startup in the space. You've learned a lot, obviously, about the industry and about sort of the needs. How did the idea come about for ChargerHelp?
Well, I think the funny thing is most of my decisions has been based off around my mom's health. And so I came back to LA when her health tech got a little crazy and then it subsided. That's why I went back to work. And then when I had to make the decision to leave EV Connect, it was once again because my mom's cancer came back even worse. And it was a lot of stuff that, I'm the eldest of the family, so I take care of her. I had to be her primary caregiver. And so because I knew I had to leave, I really started to think about, what else could I be doing, right? Because I really enjoyed the clean tech space, and I really enjoyed where clean tech was going. I think they're one of the only industries that I've seen so far that talks about equity a lot. And that's been really cool to be a part of. And so when I started to think about what were the holes within our industry, one of the things that popped up to me was the maintenance piece, was the ideal that there really isn't a workforce that can maintenance smart technology, whether that's your Ring doorbell, whether that's, the charging station, all these things that we're making smart. You either have someone that's IT or you have someone that is just they can go out and fix the physical thing.
Right. Yeah. They have soldering irons and wrenches and
right.
those, yeah.
But it's and then even if you have that, if you put the IT person out in the field, you're going to overpay for that service because sometimes the problems aren't that complicated. Right. And so,
yeah.
And so that's when I, started working with Lacey and talking to the LA Clean Tech Incubator and just saying hey, can I run a program here with folks from the community to teach them how to maintenance these charging stations? Because number one, I know I can save the industry money because we don't have to pay a crazy amount for an IT person to go out or an electrical contractor person to go out, especially because that isn't what we're trying to fix, right? And I knew that we could pay more than some of these folks from the community were getting paid at entry-level customer support jobs. So in my mind, it was this really happy medium. And so Lacey, being the amazing organization that they are, allowed me to run a pilot. So I created a curriculum on how to fix charging stations, and it included environmental justice and everything about the EV industry. It's 6 modules, and I launched it with 30 participants. And really had the industry show up for me. We had folks from all different companies come in and speak to them. We had some manufacturers that allowed us to go on site to show them around. And these are just folks from South Central LA, from Pacoima, just folks that are oh yeah, I heard about this EV thing, but I didn't really know too much about it. And the way that they soaked up the information and was able to solve these problems quickly was very validating. But one of the things that we found was that it was still hard for them to get a job, right? To be an independent contractor. It was still hard for them to do their invoicing and all this stuff that comes with being an independent contractor. And so from there, we're okay, if we create an app, we secure the contracts with network providers, and then we facilitate how they're getting paid and, making sure that they have the right information to troubleshoot, and that we're making sure that the network providers knows when they're on site. If we facilitate all these things that were hard for both parties in a phone, we felt as though like, oh, that is a solve. Like that is a win-win situation. And that's basically how we came up with the idea.
That makes a lot of sense. And, the thing that I love about what you're doing is this sort of dual mission. When people hear about it in the name, obviously it's about, oh, this is clean tech, this is electric vehicles. But you really are talking about kind of the evolution or the future of work and this idea of, we had somebody else on who was in the water space, right? And so turning, and they use sensors and AI to monitor water levels in other countries. That's more of an issue. So it's basically turning your local plumber into a technician. And so I see a lot of parallels here where you're taking the abilities that people have and sort of the work rhythm of I go to a site, I need to diagnose, I need to fix, and kind of bring it into the 21st century. It's really cool.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think the one thing I would say there that we're most proud is like with technology, like you don't have to go to school for 4 years to maintenance a charging station. You know what I mean? It's like we're doing all these troubleshooting things, like using the technology to predict, okay, this is this issue, do these things, instead of it just being like a troubleshooting document. Like, and so I'm like so excited as technology kind of like being like leveling the playing field in some aspects and like really looking at, okay, is this person a hard worker? Are they going to show up on time? Are they going to, be kind? Like the things that I know that people from my community are like really great at and highlighting that and allowing them to, be more successful and right, full circle, right? Like this is economic mobility. Like that is what I'm testing out is like, how do you create win-win situations for economic mobility? Can we do it through technology? And these are the assumptions that we're testing with this company.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I really love that term, actually, economic mobility. So you have an interesting business where you have sort of this chicken and egg, right? So you have to build up one side, I guess the supply side, so to speak, of the folks that are going to do the work. And then you have the demand side, which obviously is the networks and I guess you call them hosts of charging stations or owners of charging stations. So how did you think about that when you're starting the business? Did you think about I need to do them at the same time, or I need to validate one first, or how did you think about that?
Yeah, we think of doing them at the same time because just as like our network providers are very important because they're our customers, we also see the technicians as our customers. And even when we build models, we look at how many stations in a contract do we need in order to make sure that a technician is making at least $40,000, right? And how do we align them, like what areas can we do that in? Like, is it a full-time job or are we working with a partner like AAA where we're subsidizing work? So we really saw it as we have to do them both because they're both equally as important. And we really see ourselves as a bridge because like these two groups need each other. Like network providers need folks that are gonna be able to be on the ground, that knows what they're doing, that's affordable. And technicians, these folks that we're training, these new technicians need work that's actually going to allow them to, if they don't want to be a maintenance tech, maybe they want to sell EV charging, maybe they want to get into solar, but they still need this experience in order to go through that pathway, right? And because they need each other, we're just facilitating that relationship.
That makes a lot of sense. And so basically the need was glaring, which is another great sign of opportunity for a startup, that it's got to happen one way or another, and it happens really inefficiently and expensively, and there's a big disconnect with basically the skill sets. So it's a cool thing. So as you were thinking about starting the company, or as you were starting the company, did you also have to think about sort of regionality? And how are the people on the demand side? Are they more like municipalities? And so it's like a physical constrained space, or you're working with companies who have locations around the country, or how does that work?
So we're working directly with network providers. So when we think about network providers, those are the folks who are actually supplying the software for the stations. And so that way we don't have to go to a municipality. We would go to network provider because they've already secured all their site hosts, because it's in their best interest for their stations to be online and operating at all times. And with new contracts that are coming out from a lot of the utility funding, they're requiring certain SLAs. I know New York has SLAs right now that stations can't be down longer than 6 hours. And we're starting to see it inside of more contracts where they're having line items for maintenance. So our customer is the network provider that is installing the stations all over. So the way we see our growth is alongside, we see ourselves as partners with network providers. So if they need us, in New York, or if they need us in Florida, that's where we're going to be moving along with. this year we're working on pilots and establishing out those relationships with some of the larger network providers and then also some mid-level network providers as well. So our growth plan and our strategy is in the making. We just started in January, so a lot of stuff we're still hammering out, but that's kind of like our overall idea of how we want to move forward with where we'll end up at geographically.
Very interesting. One clarification for those who don't know, an SLA is a service level agreement, and it's basically what you commit to when you have a service. It usually involves uptime or consistency and so forth. So that's what Kameale is talking about. So Kameale, tell us, is there a big regulatory impact on your business specifically? I know clean tech obviously has a lot of regulatory aspects to it, but what about your business specifically?
As of yet, we haven't seen any regulatory items come out that's impacting the maintenance side of EV charging. I think the only thing that we've been watching is this year there was supposed to be, I think it was almost like $2 or $3 billion of infrastructure funds that were coming out. But because of COVID, we're just more so paying attention to, are those funds still going to be allocated this year? Are they being reallocated? Like, what does that look like? But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, well, that's good. Sometimes that's extra friction to growth and development when you're in the startup world. So can you give us a sense of sort of scale of like kind of where you are and where you're trying to get to? I mean, how many charging stations are there in the country and where are you on that journey?
Because we only service public charging stations, so we're not doing residential, but we do apartment buildings, so what we call multi-unit dwellings. So when we look at those numbers, they're probably a little less than like, I want to say 500,000 charging stations are probably out there from private and public. And when we say private, sometimes like workplaces, they'll have charging stations, but it's not mapped.
Oh, okay.
And what I said earlier was that in the next 5 years, they're looking at adding about, I think it's like 2.5 million more charging stations. And so for us, we want it all. We're being strategic in where we go just because we have to be mindful of like the workforce. And we are this year mainly testing like pilots. So we're looking at launching a pilot here in Southern California, looking at how do we create models around really dense areas. And then we are going to be looking at launching a pilot maybe in New York or another state where we can look at how do we support stations that are a little bit more spread out. Because for the industry, it's a lot easier for network providers to support stations if they're all clustered together. But like really Los Angeles and New York and probably San Francisco are only areas that they are clustered together. And if we really want to do EV adoption, we have to look at, charging stations that are along the corridors of like the I-5. And how do you support a charging station that, it is like in a very small town. Like, do you go and train one person there so they can go out and be dispatched, right? And we want to test those things this year as our first year. And then next year, we'll be able to go after some larger contracts. I guess the last thing I'll add there for us in regards to growth is that this year we are applying to like different RFPs going alongside some of our partner networks in order to win some of the new infrastructure deals to expand into next year once they get installed.
Great. A lot of momentum, which is awesome. So what's the big vision? Like, where do you see ChargerHelp going? I mean, you mentioned earlier this idea about IoT and some other things that are that have intelligence now that there isn't really a precedent for how you service and maintain them. Do you see yourself going beyond clean tech, or is that a big enough opportunity for you to spend all of your focus on that for a while?
Yeah, I think right now we're just really focused on supporting the EV industry. EV adoption is really important to me, environmental justice, and really transitioning into a more green economy is really important. And so most of my thoughts and brain power is about how do I support this entire industry on the maintenance side. There may be other opportunities in the future, but one of the things that I've learned is just focus is key. And so we're just really focusing on solving this problem right now.
Makes total sense. And it seems like it's a massive opportunity. And probably as you start to think about the globe, and you could spend your whole life and the company's whole life just focused on EV. So that's great. We will take another short break to hear from our sponsor and be right back with Kameale Terry from ChargerHelp.
Hi, this is Jean-Claude from Black VC. We're a community created to connect, engage, empower, and advance Black venture investors. And the best part is, we're built for and by Black venture investors. In these unprecedented times, our mission has become clearer than ever. Black founders and investors are underrepresented and undercapitalized in the startup ecosystem. If you're an investor, an entrepreneur, or aspiring to be either one, Black VC is working hard to help you find the community and the resources that you need to further your journey. To learn more about the events and the programs that we run, follow us on Twitter at BlackVC, that's BLCKVC, or visit us on our website at blackvc.com. That's BLCKVC.com. Yep, you heard that correctly. No A. At Black VC, we believe that we are the change that we seek, and together, we're stronger. We hope that you'll join us.
So we're back with Kameale Terry from ChargerHelp. So Kameale, let's shift gears a little bit. One of the things that we didn't talk about is your co-founder. How did you come about connecting with your co-founder and deciding to take the plunge together in this?
Yeah, so my co-founder, I actually met her through Lacey. And quick shout out to them. If you're not familiar with the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator, it literally has been the greatest thing for our company just because of the people that are there. And it's been amazing. So my co-founder, she works for the Department of Labor, and then she also does contractor work out for workforce development and workforce implementation. And so she worked alongside, Lacey hired her to work alongside of the team to do the first cohort. And one of the things I've leaned into a lot as being a founder is really listening to my gut. And so when I saw the questions that Yvette asked and the way that she worked with the technicians and the participants, and also just how quick she was able to pick up things, I approached her and was like, you want to do this thing with me? And the funny thing is, up until this point, there was a lot of, because so we had also we had one startup grind LA, and people were starting to learn more about it. So there was a lot of folks who were approaching me about being a co-founder. So it was funny that when I asked Yvette, she was like, she is not familiar with tech really. She's a workforce development person, implementation person. So she was like, right. I don't know. And it was funny because everybody wanted to be my co-founder, and Yvette's like, I don't know. And I'm like, oh, this is the one.
There you go. Yeah, I think Groucho Marx has some weird, I don't want to join a club that would have me as a member. And it's kind of the opposite of I want the person I have to chase.
I got to think about it. And she's like, I got to ask my husband. And she's like, I got to pray about it. And I said, okay, girl, you could just let me know. And then she came back. I think almost
how long did it take?
I think it took a week. And I remember seeing her every day, and I didn't want to be the weirdo that's you got a decision. I also didn't want to seem like I was being thirsty. So I was right. I'm just going to wait. And then finally she came back and she was like, okay, I think I could do that. And I was like, oh, okay, great. So a lot of the work that she has been doing is really helping with the product, right? Because one of the things that I know when you create technology, if you're not aware of everyone that needs to use your technology, especially where, we may have folks that, maybe they have a college degree, maybe they don't, maybe they're a veteran, maybe they're not, right? And because she's aware of workforce implementation and how people receive information, we really utilize her with our product team to ask the right questions, right? To make sure that we're not off the mark. And even when we talk about how we're going to pay people, what does that look like? And with the training, she's one of the trainers there that teaches a lot of the soft skills. And so she's been so integral to make sure that ChargerHelp, we are a technology company, but we're also saying that you can be both, right? You can build a really cool product, you can make a lot of money, and you can also treat your workers equitably. And she's making sure that we are held accountable to that. So it's literally the best decision I've made. And I'm very happy she said yes. I would have been devastated if she said no, because I'm really cool to work with, so.
That's great.
I'm glad she said yes.
Yeah, that's great. It's probably the best of all situations. Like you said, if she had said yes right away, then maybe,
right.
But then if it was 6 months later, you'd be like, I got to go, so that's great. So tell me, have you raised any money for ChargerHelp, or have you gone through a fundraise experience, or how have you sort of funded it to so far?
So it's funny when we basically launched launch when COVID started happening. And one of the things that everyone kept telling me was VCs weren't giving money. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, that's fine. So we went the route of we apply to 20 or 30 pitch competitions, grants. And so like, so far we we raise I don't even know if it's a raise, but we've won a lot of money just from like pitching and from grants. And that's been able to like carry us forward. And then we've been teaching our curriculum. So we charge to teach the curriculum. So it's kind of like a bootstrap situation so far. But I think that we're definitely open to talking to investors. For me, I always say like, all money isn't good money. And like, we want strategic investors. We want people that can help us scale. Like we do have a really good advisory team because we're a part of Lacey's incubator. But I guess the short answer is like we've bootstrapped basically so far. We've been able to take on a pretty good amount of money to get us where we're at and kind of carry us through the year. But we will be interested in conversations probably soon in order for us to get what we need, hit our milestones for 2021.
That makes a lot of sense. And, a lot of times there's so many pitch competitions and, challenges and so forth. And I think sometimes people view those, that's just a distraction. It's not reality. But I mean, you're a great example. I mean, grants are great. And hey, on Foundation out there, there's a little nugget, right? Grants don't dilute your equity. Right. And so it's equivalent to revenue in some senses, right? Basically, it's cash that comes in that can fuel your cash flow and your cash needs, but you're not giving up any of your company for it. So it's especially when you're early on, it can be really great.
Yeah, and we were lucky enough to win. MIT did a program with ServiceNow. And ServiceNow is like a really big like workflow software company. And so we won $100,000 through them and also like a lot of support services. And then we won LA Black Investors Club pitch competition. And then we came in as a runner up at Innovative City pitch competition where we pitched to Arlen Hamilton. And she was so intrigued with what we had to do. She offered us office hours. And so it's like what
was that like?
It was really cool. Like, I think because we care about what we're doing and like it makes sense to me and I know what I'm doing so well. It's like it's very exciting to like share the industry with folks and share the opportunity with people. And she was really cool. She did tell me, she's like, you have a very interesting voice. Like, you should do voiceovers. And I was like, okay. I don't know what that means, but okay.
Hey, maybe we'll get you as a guest host here on Founders Unfound. You do have a good voice.
She's like, if you do raise more money, like maybe do voiceovers. I was like, okay, Arlen, whatever you say. Like, yes. But yeah, so I think, all together we're almost at rate, like just from pitches and grants, that we're almost at like 250. And so that covers like our MVP, that covers like literally everything. We haven't had to give up any equity. Yeah.
That's awesome. And so have there been other organizations or folks, you mentioned Arlen, you mentioned Lacey, other organizations that have been sort of helpful and help to catalyze your momentum forward?
Absolutely. Grid 110. So we were part of Grid 110 LA's IDOTA prototype program. So that's an organization supported by the Los Angeles Mayor's Office. And like I said, we pitched at Startup Grind South LA, which was, I think this was the first time that they did South LA. That may be a lie. I'm not sure. That was really cool because that got us like really, really connected to folks. And then just like the industry in general, I've been so proud to be a part of the clean tech industry because of the ways in which we support one another. If I need to call and talk to anybody about an ideal, like literally everyone's open to like hearing the ideal and everyone's really excited about what we're building because like, it's not the cool and sexy thing. Like maintenance isn't like fun. You know what I mean? Like to people, but I'm like, we'll do it. So it's like those organizations and just like my industry, I'm like, I think I've just been so taken aback by just the ways in which I can reach out to literally anyone and they'll pick up my call and help me figure something out.
That's great. I mean, you want an industry like that, right? That is collaborative and supportive. So here's a question. So as a Black woman founder, can you think of examples when you've been reminded of that fact in a positive way and on the other side in a challenging way?
Well, I guess like starting off with a challenging way, I'm like positive ways. In a challenging way, I think that there's a lot of times where you may have an interaction and you don't know if like someone's treating you a type of way. Like a lot of it's just kind of like a mind, like it messes with your head, right? Because like you don't really know if like they're doing this because you're a Black woman or maybe that's just how they are. And that's usually where I find myself a lot of times where like I want to believe the good in people, but then I'm just like, oh, like, are you treating me like this because of this? And then even right now with all of this like focus on like Black founders in general. I had a company reach out to us that like wanted to interview us, and the first thing I ask is like, well, why? Like, what did you hear? And they're like, oh, well, we want to do something on Black founders and like have you tell us like how can we support Black founders. I'm like, no, like we have a good company, like we have a good ideal, you know what I mean? And so like I get why like people are starting to like focus on Black founders, but it also is like just as frustrating because like at the end of the day, like I want you to judge me by like the ideal that I have. Like I just want an equal opportunity. Like I don't need an extra hand. Like I just want you to treat me the same way as you treat everyone else. And so it's been interesting right now to have to kind of like manage that because like you do want to take advantage of like the times, but then it's just like, I just want you to know that I have a cool company and like we're doing really cool stuff and like my team is really diverse and amazing, and that's what I want you to pay attention to.
Yeah, you're right. I feel that every day myself, this idea that first you're ignored potentially because of it, and then now you're being paid attention to because of it, right? As opposed to what I'm doing and getting excited about my business.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Well, hopefully when somebody asks you that question again, Founders Unfound will be on the positive category.
I'm always like, I guess it's positive. I will say one thing that is positive. So like Yvette's Black, our future CFO is Black women, and we spend a lot of time together, and I think the positive thing there has been being in community of them. And it's funny, when I went to build the company, I wasn't like, oh, I want to find like Black women to be on my team. I was like, oh, I want to find the best people for these positions, and it just so happens to be Black women. And like that's been like really cool to like share in this journey and experience with just like our consultant. Like she used to work for the Department of Defense. Like she did cost estimation for the Department of Defense for like the last like 10 years. And is like a beast, and we have calls until 11 o'clock at night, like working on stuff together. And I think there's a certain type of like sisterhood and just like respect, because like we all have had like very senior level positions. So we've all been through like really just like crazy stuff, but we're here and now we're like collaborating to like build this amazing company. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. And that has been like the most life-giving experience I've literally ever had. So yeah, so that is the positive thing, finding other amazing dope Black women that are just willing to roll up their sleeves and like do the work with you.
That's great. I personally think like in 500 years, they're going to look back and say Black women had superhuman capabilities that were not appreciated at the time.
I receive that.
Yeah. So the last question I'll ask is one we ask everybody, the retrospective. So if you could go back in time to the Kameale of, say, when you were still at the bank, and so this Kameale, today's 2020 Kameale, could go back to that Kameale and say, you're going to want to do all these things. What advice would you give her?
Just tell her to hold on. I think just hold on and keep doing it. It was, it was hard. Like, right, you're in a predominantly white financial institution with a lot of white folks who report to you. Like, that was probably one of my most like challenging times. And I think I always like doubted myself. So I think I would just be like, hold on, steadfast, like, you're about to build something really cool. But all of these lessons and how I matured during that time period, I wouldn't change it for literally anything. And even the people I met too. So yeah, I would tell her to hold on. It's going to be all right. It'll be all right.
Hold on. Yeah. It's a long race. Yeah. That's great. Well, this has been so much fun, Kameale. Why don't you tell the audience, is there ways that they could find out more about ChargerHelp or get in touch with you? Do you have social media handles you want to share?
I'm on the Twitter now. I wasn't on Twitter before, but you can find me Kameale C, and also at ChargerHelp on Twitter and LinkedIn. I really enjoy using that platform. So just you can find me Kameale Terry at LinkedIn, and you can find all ChargerHelp news on LinkedIn as well.
Great. Well, I could talk to you for another hour, but we're coming to the end of our time. So thank you so much, Kameale, for making the time. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity.
We'd like to thank our guest, Kameale Terry, and our sponsor, Black VC. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, or simply go to foundersunfound.com/listen to. That's listen, T-O. And follow us on Twitter and Instagram at foundersunfound. This podcast was produced by Dan Kihanya. Editing and production by Internet Radio Corporation. Social media and other promotion by Umama Marzouk. Our music was composed by Daniel Bordowski, Bobby Cole, Neil Cross, James Grant, Alex Kaskin, and Will Van de Kromert. I am Dan Kihanya, and you've been listening to Founders Unfound.